Hey guys, welcome to the Player 3 podcast,
where we discuss our favorite topics.
From video games to philosophy.
where we argue over what's good and bad.
Degrade and rank each other.
And have a great time with friends. Enjoy!
Today, we're talking about maybe the most influential company of all time. Apple.
Shit, I thought it was Disney.
Fuck!
I was gonna say, am I like an old person? Or I was gonna say Rockefeller or Standard Oil.
No! Out of your mind.
Yeah, I guess I know nothing. Jeez.
No, I mean,
We're
Well,
not
there's
talking the men who built America here.
I'm not talking about the Gilded Age, Ryan, alright? I think there's
Okay.
I think there's a difference, though, between important and influential.
Yeah, there is.
Or successful and influential. Because you
Probably.
gotta... So, alright, are we ready to get into it? I think we can.
Yeah.
I
Let's go.
suppose.
Alright, so, little background for the people who live under a rock. Alright, Apple Incorporated, founded in a garage, Palo Alto, California, they were founded in this garage. Steve Jobs was adopted, by the way. Of course, his parents gave him up. He was adopted by a Syrian doctor, or his regular birth parents. He was a Syrian doctor that came out later. Of course, he was adopted to his parents in Palo Alto, California, and he was kind of he didn't try very hard in school. He goes to Reed College for a year, not really into it. Takes a couple calligraphy classes, kind of is enjoying that, but he's more into the design. He likes design, right? That is sort of the overarching theme is I care about vision and making things come to fruition and formulating ideas and realizing ideas. So here's a buddy from very early on, Mr. Steve Wozniak, the Woz, all right? This guy is a genius. All right, he's a mechanical engineer. He knows. Hey, I know a mechanical engineer.
There you go.
He is.
Yeah, I'm not a mechanical engineer yet.
All
2
right,
months.
not
In 2
2
months.
All right, got it.
Well, by
So-
the time this releases, you will be.
He will be. Yeah, he will be. So actually, congratulations. Hey,
Yeah.
congratulations, Ryan. So Wozniak, very smart guy, knows a lot about computers, and at this time, computers are not super complex. They're COB, chips on boards. So it's
Mhm.
just one of those, green motherboard-looking things that you can all visualize in your head, and then chips placed strategically, soldered and welded and stuff like that, all connected. Okay, so after a little stint at Atari, they were tasked with downsizing the board on. Oh man, I'm trying to think of the game. Breakout. So his boss at Atari goes, all right, if you can shrink these chips down as little as possible, I'll give you a bonus. And Steve Jobs is like, well, I'm not really good at that, so I'll go help my friend Woz, or go call my friend Woz. Woz helps him out. They get it down. Woz, like I said, absolute genius. Kills it. All right. Shrink the boards down nice and small. And the bonus was like $3,500. All right, now Jobs promised to split it with Woz. Bonus ended up being $3,500. He gave Woz $500. All right, and Jobs kept the other $3,000. Okay, so I want to say that to just set this up. So that's kind of the type of guy Jobs is, right? Ruthless, not really sympathetic to others. He's really
Yeah.
out for himself in a way. But this is where the question becomes. It's like, meant for a guy who made so many amazing devices, and we'll get into that. It's like, it's interesting that he was kind of a douchebag, like, and kind of an unsavory businessman. So, looking more broadly, all right. So we're in the garage now. We're working on the Apple One. It's like Woz did almost all of the technical work, like almost all of it. And Steve Jobs was more of your businessman. So moving through, you got your Apple, then the Apple II, then a failed project called the Lisa, named after his estranged daughter that he failed to recognize until she was like 20.
Jeez.
Oh, I thought he died not recognizing her.
No, he did. He did
Okay.
finally recognize her. But she was like 20. This is like
Mhm.
2000. He's like, all right, I guess that's fine.
Okay, then.
real piece of work. All right. So then you move into the Macintosh, and then we have a whole new line. Of course, he gets kicked out of Apple in the early '90s, and they just start releasing garbage products like the Newton. Steve Jobs, of course, starts Next, the company Next. You may have seen him. It was that was under Disney. So this is where he gets his name involved in Disney. All right. So there's your little timeline there. So what are we thinking now? Who is more integral to the literal success of the company? Woz's technical ability to actually create these things that Jobs was asking, or Jobs' ability to visualize it, realize what people need, way ahead of the curve. What do you guys think? Who is more integral?
I mean, it's important to be creative in the sense of have creative ideas and whatnot, which by your interpretation is what Jobs was doing. But to actually be able to do those things and actually make those things, I think is a little more important. And that, I guess, would be more integral to Apple's success, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of working on an engineering project right now where it's like, coming up with the idea and making it are two entirely different things.
It's
Yeah.
totally different.
And, you can have a great idea, a revolutionary piece of technology, where if it's not marketed right, it will die.
Yes.
It will not succeed. And so I am leaning slightly in favor of Jobs, but I think they're also so codependent, it's hard to make a case for either.
Yeah.
I do think, though, it would be easier for Jobs to find another Wozniak than for Wozniak to find another Jobs.
And I was gonna say, like, you gotta
That's
think.
fair.
Like, you gotta think. All right, so Jobs is a genius in his own way. Like,
Mhm.
Jobs was a super, like, thoughtful, artistic guy. Read poetry, read books, listened to music. That was more of his thing. He was all about realizing dreams, And he wasn't a cog in the machine, but he was more of a guy who's like, I have a job, I got it, just give me time to work on it. He was kind of a workhorse type of guy. And that's
Yeah.
where I kind of fall 50-50. It's like, yeah, like obviously there's no Apple II without Jobs saying, we need to put the screen and the keyboard needs to all be in one box. Because how they used to sell computers was you'd have the board, then you'd have to buy a board, just a green motherboard like we were visualizing earlier.
Right.
Then you'd have to buy a keyboard separately. Mice didn't exist yet. Not with the Apple I, but the Apple II mice come along. Since the late 70s. You'd buy your TV monitor separate. Then you would need a radio
Oh, okay, that's not on my end, it's on Dylan's.
Yeah.
Dylan, your internet is goofing out.
Oh.
So,
You
mice late
mentioned
70s.
You mentioned the monitor, buying the monitor separate.
Is it looking good now? Is it fine now?
Yeah,
you're good.
it was
it's just
kind of bad
bugging out.
stutter. Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right, so you'd have your board. You'd have to buy a monitor or TV monitor separate. You'd have to buy your keyboard separate. Mice were not really a thing yet.
Right.
But then you'd have to buy like a radio converter to convert the frequency from the board to the TV. So it's like this whole other thing. And Jobs was like, for the Apple II, he's like, the Apple I was just the board, right?
Mm-hmm.
The Apple II, Jobs was like, put the power supply inside the box, put the monitor, put everything inside, and let the keyboard be attached to the unit. Make everything one. It was the first all-in-one.
Mm-hmm.
So like, to say we need all of this stuff inside a tiny little box, it can't overheat and it has to be fast. And I don't want to hear. And he didn't want a fan. There was no fans. And like, you gotta think, you're running with. I mean, at the time, contemporary technology, but like to us, it's like, wow, a piece of garbage.
Yeah.
A literal piece of garbage. And he's like, no fans, power supply inside, can't run hot. I don't want to hear it. I don't want any issues with it. And he's like, all right, go at it. And like these guys they knew from college and a couple like nerds that were just around the neighborhood, like they're like, all right, well, we'll try. And they make it happen. So it's like, where do you fall in like, all right, Jobs says, I want the all-in-one. I want the first all-in-one. And these guys make it happen. It's like, after so many years, like Jobs, like, and we'll get to this later, but the iPad actually came first. But he said we have to start with the phone and then upscale it. But
Right.
it's like I see the iPad. It's like, how do we get there? Okay, the engineers will go at it, but Steve Jobs has to see the iPad, a big tablet, a computer tablet in his brain. So I don't know. I go back and forth sometimes. Like the early success, I don't know. But like Ryan, you're talking
Yeah.
about the marketing. It's like that is super important.
Well, and it's marketing and networking, and from what I understand, he was really good at rubbing elbows and getting in the know with the right people who would also spread the message.
Yeah, that's
So
Yeah.
it's the idea man and also spraying it where, you know, there are engineers out there, a lot of them, and maybe less than, but still several, where they could do the technical work of Wozniak. Maybe not quite as well as Wozniak, some may be better, but they kind of need direction. They aren't necessarily creative in the way that Jobs is. So I do think probably he is. I would give the split either 60-40 or 65-35 job
I
wise.
fall about right there, probably 60-40,
Yeah.
especially
Yeah.
in the early days.
Yeah. And of course Woz, as the technology got older, I don't think he kept up, and they started getting newer, younger engineers to replace him
correct.
because the industry.
And actually, yes, yeah, and actually in 19, I want to say 84, 85, 86, something like that. He was in a plane accident, plane crash,
Oh, I actually
Oh,
didn't know
and
that.
he had retrograde amnesia, so he didn't remember
Oh my.
working on any of that stuff until they start telling him what all he did, and he starts reading books about himself,
Hmm.
and then he gets to the point now where he retells a story, and he's like, I did all that stuff. It's like pretty nuts.
Yeah.
But basically, his brain is like from 1984, 85, 86, something like that, till present day. So I just think that's
Does he
definitely interesting.
remember physically doing that stuff, or does he just remember reading that he
I
did
think he
that
probably
stuff?
has bits. I don't know. He probably has bits and pieces. I mean, I haven't read like how severe it was, but he was in serious condition for a while.
That's
Well,
awful.
I mean, it was a biplane accident over Seattle, I think. Just landed.
Oh, wow.
The
Damn.
crash landed on the road. Yeah, it's nuts. And I didn't know that. I had no idea that happened.
So
Yeah.
here's actually something too, kind of to maybe swing the pendulum back more in Woz's corner is I've actually learned a lot about synthesizers in the past semester because one of my classes is about music technology, and almost all of the synthesizer engineers who created them came up with the idea and the invention themselves. Like they just made it themselves, them and more engineers.
Yeah.
And then they'd work with musicians to get the sounds they wanted out of them and how do we actually make music using
Yeah.
these synthesizers.
Manipulate sound waves, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when it came to the actual invention, they were the idea guy and the technical guy.
Mm.
So
Interesting.
It used to be
so
both.
it's not impossible. Yeah, it's not
No.
impossible that Wozniak could have done it himself.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
definitely could have. Oh, something interesting too. So I just remembered this. So, and now I want to say something that kind of I think I want to swing towards Jobs a little heavier. So, in Palo
Okay.
Alto, California, there was something called Homebrew Computer Club. What this was basically a venue for a bunch of other engineer nerds to come and share privated software and then sometimes showcase new hardware. Okay, so Jobs and Wozniak took the Apple One in its early days to Homebrew Computer Club. Everyone starts tinkering with it. They're like, man, this thing is like really snappy, really fast. Like, this is pretty cool. And Woz wanted to just produce them and then give them away. And Jobs was like, hey, no, we can make money off of this. What are you thinking? And eventually he gets a deal with a mom and pop equivalent to a Radio Shack. I don't know the details of it, but he puts in
They
his
do
order. They make
production.
it happen. Yeah, they make it happen, and suddenly Apple's in business out of the
Fair
garage,
enough.
Palo Alto, California. Yeah. So, kind of looking a little more broadly, I was talking about the timeline of the personal computer, and after the failed project, Lisa, which Times ran a story on there, like, why is it called this? And I want to actually look it up because I don't want to get this wrong. He said
Okay.
that it stood for something, but basically the acronym, locally integrated software architecture means nothing. It means absolutely
Yeah.
nothing. But he came up with that because he said, oh, this is the Lisa. It's the Lisa. It's the Lisa. It's like, Okay. Why is it? And it's like, well, you have a daughter named Lisa Brennan. And he's like,
Yeah.
nope, not mine. And he put out a in that Times when they interviewed him, put in that Times story. He said he came up with a number like it could be 7 million other people, but it's not me. He's like, she lived. The mother lived here during this period of time. She went to this college, and she would have met this many guys, and like she's like, it could be 7 million people, but it's not me. It's like he was really adamant, which is nuts. So they ask him again, like, hey, why is Elisa called this? He comes with locally integrated software architecture. Doesn't mean a thing.
Well, and I know at some point they did a DNA test with him, and it came back he was the father.
Yeah,
and he's like, no,
Yeah, he's
no,
like,
DNA test is wrong.
do it again. He's like, do it again. Yeah, because
Science is wrong.
she was trying to get his salary. I mean, rightfully, he was the dad.
Well, here's the thing you have to understand too: is contextual time periods. No one understood DNA back then. Not like we do now. That's actually why that is a large portion why OJ was acquitted. Is because the jury didn't understand DNA evidence. They didn't get it. They didn't grow up in science. Yeah, they didn't grow up in science class like you and I did, where they understood what DNA was.
Wow, that is
And that's as recently as the 80s, 70s,
Yeah,
That's
90s.
freaky.
That is
Yeah.
pretty crazy. So besides OJ Simpson, I'm just thinking, what do you guys think was more revolutionary time? And I'll set the stage for Macintosh. So, 1984, of course, the famous commercial about 1984, the novel, and the tagline at the end is January 1984. You'll see why 1984 won't be like 1984, meaning this Macintosh is gonna free people. It's gonna liberate people in work, at home, and at school. It was meant to be an educational device. It was shown inside of classrooms. That was the grand idea of it. And it worked. It worked. It was at the time, perfected all-in-one machine that really set the stage for Steve Jobs' comeback in the late 90s, early 2000s for the iMac, the iPhone, the iPod, the iPad. That was sort of the device that kind of solidified Apple and sent them their stock price. They go public a few years prior to the release of the Macintosh, and it sends their stock through the roof. The problem with it, though, was that it was extremely expensive. Extremely expensive. In fact, Jobs was willing to take a loss on it because he said, I'm not charging X amount of dollars for this. I absolutely refuse to. Of course, at this time, since you're public, they have a corporate board to mitigate risk, decision making. Being publicly traded, Jobs goes, no, well, I'd rather take the loss on this than charge an extra $200 because this is not what we do. And eventually he's ousted about a year after Macintosh released. We can't, you're off the hinge, dude. You're making decisions that is gonna lose Apple money. But the point of the Macintosh was, all right, we are really gonna revolutionize the market and take control of the market and corner the market. They did. Which brings me to the next product, the iPhone. When this thing released in the middle of 2000s, it absolutely, I don't think I have to sell you on the iPhone. It absolutely was revolutionary. But I want to get your guys' take on what do you think is more important, is more important in the overall success of Apple, the company, and the market that we live in today.
So I think. So here's my hot takes, I guess. I think the iPhone is more important today for Apple. Here's why. When it comes to the Mac or the Macintosh, that was very revolutionary for when it first came out. The only issue is you mentioned before that it was made to free you and I guess
but the marketing was the idea. It was liberate the individual, liberate the user. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Windows does a better job with that.
But Apple is first.
I know, but today, I think.
Okay.
I think Mac is less important than iPhone is in 2022.
Sure, but here's what I'll put it like this:
if you're trying to compare Mac when it the first few years of it being on the market, compare that to iPhone like 15 years ago, maybe. I
Yeah,
don't
that's
know.
about right. Yeah, that's about right. 15.
I would say it's pretty much a draw there, like pretty 50-50 on that.
Yeah,
They're both very important. I think today the iPhone is way more important than
definitely.
the Mac.
Yeah.
That's my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, I would agree generally in what is more important today. In terms of what was more revolutionary for the time, I might still go iPhone, but I say that because IBM was doing computers better than Apple at the time. They just weren't
Mhm.
doing home computers that were
Yeah.
affordable.
Yeah.
But they easily, it would be foreseeable that they could make that pivot as computers became cheaper over time.
Yeah.
It just
Right.
might not have happened as fast. To turn that technology into a phone, is frankly
Nuts.
a wild
insane.
idea.
It's
Right.
insane.
And actually, from what I remember too, is iPod Touches came slightly before the phone, so there was kind of like a layup to it. Because
Mhm.
iPods have less technology. Maybe I'm
Right, right.
misremembering.
They
I
can
mean,
just play music.
the iPhone 3G though was the first to enable the touch display.
Okay.
Right, I
Okay, so
was gonna
they invented
say-
the Apple invented the multi-touch display.
So
Okay.
basically, Apple invented
Using your finger as a
smartphones.
stylus.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, but in the terms of yes, in the way we think of it, yes. I mean, you had Blackberries that had the keyboard on the phone
Right.
with
And
a
but they
kind
had
of
the
a
scroll
cursor
wheel.
thing in the middle.
The
Yeah, and the
scroll
scroll
wheel.
wheel. So they
Yeah.
did have that, but what Steve Jobs said was, "Here's your stylus right here. Make it that."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's what that turned into. Totally
Mhm.
nuts. He said the presentation for the iPhone was something like this. It's a browser, it's a web browser, a music player, and a phone. You can call people, email people, and listen to music. And they put it into one. You know,
Yeah.
and that was the invention of the iPhone. And like the idea that you would look at the screen and you would touch it, and it responds like your finger. Your finger is the stylus. That's the revolutionary stuff that I'm talking about. Where I go, no, like you gotta really think outside the box for that one, because
Yeah.
you gotta think at the time everyone's making a BlackBerry. Blackberries were the shit, but the
Mm.
keyboard's mechanical on the phone, couldn't flip it, horrible display, horrible camera.
Mhm.
And
Also, I
Steve
wanna
Jobs
point
comes
out-
around. Go ahead.
Okay. No, you finish.
Steve Jobs comes around and goes, "No, we are gonna make this better than everybody else." And he did. He
Yeah.
totally did. So where I fall, yeah, it's iPhone all day, 100%.
So what I was gonna say, just kind of as a quick aside, is that those Blackberries are modern slide phones, not smartphones. Probably about as much computational power as the Apple One.
Yeah, probably.
Fair
Literally.
enough.
Probably more.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
which is
What-
yeah, no, that's totally true.
One thing I will say about in defense of the Mac is I think it'd be different if we grew up with like the original
Absolutely.
few Macs and we actually experienced what it was like when the
Totally.
Macs were out on market the first
Totally.
time and we didn't really have the convenience of Windows.
So what-
but that's
oh,
not the
go ahead.
case.
What
I was
I'll
just
say
finishing
is,
my thought.
I think that the Mac brought more money into the computer industry because they made it a personal
Oh,
industry as well, and that
100%.
accelerated what was going to inevitably happen. Whereas the phone was just kind of more revolutionary, where that didn't have to happen the way it
No,
did.
no way. It did totally did not.
That's
did not.
my general take on it.
I mean, that's the thing. It is a shift in the paradigm. The iPhone 3G was a total shift in the paradigm.
Also, in defense of Macs in modern times, for artists, they're the way to go.
They're beautiful. They're
Um,
beautiful devices. Totally.
The Windows devices are not as good. So, like, we're all gamers. I'm an engineer. Dylan, you tried your hand at engineering. Wasn't for you.
It's garbage.
Um,
Yeah, it's garbage. Yeah. I'm Steve
uh,
Jobs. Is what I'm trying to say. I am Steve Jobs. okay?
Yeah.
Okay,
But-
you're the
but-
next Steve
But
Jobs.
Windows, what I'm saying is,
Yeah, Windows
where,
is so much more. It's like utility based.
yeah,
Whereas
we're
Apple is like
and gaming,
allows
and
you
gaming.
and gaming. Yes, yes. But
Yeah.
that's more like Apple is more of the like
creative.
we don't want,
expression.
yeah, it's like just like we want to give you the tools to express yourself. Windows is
Mhm.
like we want to give you the tools to just operate efficiently. And
Yeah.
both are important, obviously.
Yeah.
They're both still around. Like people use both. I'm on a Windows PC right now, and then I have an iPhone and an Apple Watch. So it's like
Actually,
I need both.
actually,
it's like
something
I
I
use
learned.
both.
Something I learned in one of my classes is on a computer you can multi-boot, and
Meaning,
yeah, for
You-
for those of you
You can
that
have
don't
different
know,
OSs.
you can have different OSs. So take my computer for example. I can purchase the Apple OS, and I can have it boot to either that or Windows 10 or Windows 11.
Yeah.
Or what you could do is have it go back and forth between Windows 10 or Windows 11. That's called
Oh.
multi-booting, is if you have more than one OS on a computer.
Yeah, I've known about that, though from what I also understand, different computer architectures serve different better operating systems better.
Right.
So an HP is better suited for Windows than it is iOS.
Mhm.
But you can do both.
Yeah.
You can kind of force it.
Yeah.
Or
No,
you-
that's
Or you can get a VirtualBox and check out some old OSs too.
Yeah, virtual machines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, virtual
So-
machines
Yeah.
are really
This
cool.
is all stuff I've done at school.
you know what was my favorite? It's quick aside. What was your
Sure.
favorite Windows operating system?
You mean between
On
like
basic.
7, 8, and 10 and like
Yeah.
Vista
And
Yeah.
Vista.
and 11?
And
Probably.
XP, yeah.
It's too early to judge Windows 11 for me. I'm just gonna go with 10.
Okay.
The reason I say 10, I would go 11 if some of its features weren't locked behind you having to be logged in.
Yeah.
That's a big no for me. I'm a kind of a big privacy guy.
Yeah.
So that's a big no-no. So that is why 10 is over 11.
Mm-hmm.
Windows 8 was the one with the panels, correct? That were
Yes.
just garbage.
Yeah.
The worst.
Yeah.
The actual worst.
That sounds
Yeah.
right, yeah.
Windows 8 was terrible.
7
It
was
was
pretty
so
good.
bad. 7
Sorry,
was good. That's what made me start thinking
I remember
about
people saying they liked 7, like reading, I guess, about it in my classes.
that. All right, so yeah, kind of want to transition here. So we're talking about
Go
the
for
success of the iPhone, and so this brings us to a very important piece of that puzzle, which is some very unsavory business practices going on, not in our country, in East Asia, Thailand, and China.
okay.
So the reason, first of all, Apple's margins are just absolutely amazing. Like they
Bananas.
are amazing. It
Mhm.
is insane. And
$30
recently,
$30 to make a $1,300 phone.
it is
It's not actually that bad.
It's effectively, it is pretty much effectively that.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. So
Jeez.
why can they do that, Ryan? Why are we able to do that? Why are we able to charge? Why are we able to charge so much and make it for so little?
Oh man.
Well, without getting too into geopolitics, using indentured servitude and slavery overseas,
Yeah.
more or
Yikes.
less. I'm gonna say this as a quick aside. Apple gets more crap than this. Apple gets more crap for this than other countries, but Nike does the same thing.
Yes, correct.
Apple
Yes.
Apple gets
Jeez.
disproportionate criticism. But
All
like,
right.
yeah,
So here's where I kind of want to take this part of the conversation is like morally it's you have to ask yourself, man, do I just because Samsung does the same thing.
Mhm.
They chips are made in the same countries for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
So the question is, all right, I'm one person. I have 7 billion. Do I grandstand and just stop using an iPhone or stop using a smartphone, period? But we'll say for talking about Apple, we'll use the iPhone. Do I stop using an iPhone because of these unsavory business practices and effectively disconnect from the world because of that? As a result of, I should say. It's like, where do you fall? Like, is it moral to purchase? Here's the question: is it moral to purchase products from a company who does immoral, who practices unmoral or immoral ethics? I should say.
I think I know what you're trying to ask.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I would say
that's
yes with some
difficult.
caveats. I
So
would say yes
here's-
with caveats.
Here's the issue you run into. You mentioned Samsung doing the exact same thing, right? And you mentioned, Apple does it too with their phones. So you don't get a Samsung phone, you don't get an iPhone. What do you get? A Windows phone?
They have the same
They
problem.
are
They
using-
all have the same problem.
They're all using the same chip.
Exactly.
They're
Do
all
you just
using the
not
same
get a
chip.
phone then?
And that's the great question. It's like, do I disconnect from the world to take a stand
Yeah.
where you are doing literally nothing to hurt the company? Literally nothing. You mean
Yeah.
nothing to them.
So
I mean, I think I mentioned this in a previous episode about like all those beached fish story. I can't remember
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
about how
Yeah.
like the kid like threw a
Yeah,
few
and
that he
he's-
could, and
Yeah,
he's
and
like,
he
"Oh,
says,
it
well,
made a
you're not-
difference to that fish."
Yeah.
I also, once again, can be getting that story wrong, but
No, your story is definitely correct. Here's where that falls apart, though. It's like the fish is not a product. Like the fish is
Right.
a living thing in nature. The
Mhm.
iPhone is a stupid computer.
yes, and
You know.
purchasing it gives Apple what, like about $1,000 at this point.
Yeah.
which in the grand scheme of things is nothing to them.
Yeah,
It's
So-
nothing. It's so
yeah, it's
nothing.
like it's like seeing a penny on the ground and saying, "Do I want it? I guess I'll take it."
Yeah, but like if it's an especially dirty penny, you're like, no.
No.
You're a borderline dirty penny for them.
Yeah.
Crazy.
So I mean, Apple gets a lot of money from their App Store. Do you know how much they charge per app transaction?
Mm.
Fortnite actually sued because it was higher.
I remember this. I remember
yeah.
something like this.
Fortnite sued Apple because they thought they were getting robbed on Fortnite purchases through the App Store for people who are playing on iOS. And they were saying, I think it was 30%, but it might be 20. They were saying that was too much, and on other platforms it was, if it was 30, it was 20, or on other platforms it was 12. Much more reasonable. Apple makes, I think it is 30% off of any purchase you make using an Apple app. 30%. Which, for considering the fact that they do nothing for the app development,
Yeah, literally
Yeah.
nothing.
they just host it on the App Store, that's kind of highway robbery. The phone isn't where they make their money, it's the App Store.
Mhm.
As well as iTunes and Apple, what is it, Apple
Music.
Yeah.
Now Apple Fitness Plus too. They're rolling out. They're starting to roll out with the watch.
That's
yeah.
weird.
They're
So-
yeah.
Their hardware sales aren't actually, they're big, but they're not the end all be all. It's the fact that they get an install base. It's like consoles.
Yeah.
Nintendo loses money whenever they sell a Switch, but the fact that you're gonna buy Nintendo games is what matters.
I
That
mean,
is
to be
nuts.
fair, you're not about to get Marvel's Spider-Man PS4 to play on your Nintendo Switch.
No, but it's the same thing for Sony. Sony loses
Right.
money selling a PlayStation, but you're gonna buy PlayStation games and they make money there.
Right. Right.
So it's
Right.
kind of the long con.
Yeah, I see what you mean there.
So
I mean,
but
it's- then again, you
in
could
terms-
also make the argument if you're purchasing an app on an Apple phone or an iPhone rather, then that could indirectly still like be purchasing something
Yeah.
unethical because it's on a phone that was made unethically.
Yeah, and it
But-
still is propping up the company that's doing that. But I think, I said Apple gets disproportionate criticism, and I do think that's true, but I think it's because the story broke about the suicide nets,
Yeah.
where factory workers were throwing themselves out of windows, so the factory just, instead of making the working conditions better, put up nets outside the windows to catch jumpers.
That's
Awful.
insane.
This story came out, what, was it 2008,
2008.
2010?
2008.
That was somewhere. Oh yeah, somewhere in there, maybe like 7 or something. And so that was kind of the first like big blow up story that I can think of, where it's like, wow, we're really exploiting workers in Asia.
yeah.
And electronics generally might not even be ethical. I did some research on sourcing cobalt and lithium, and that isn't done well. Cobalt involves a lot of deforestation.
Yeah, isn't it like a
Lithium,
gigantic hole in the ground too?
essentially.
Yeah.
Lithium involves a
Jeez.
lot of wasted water.
Oh,
Um,
jeez.
yeah. So it's kind of a toss up if electronics are ethical to begin with, and like crypto has the same problems of like it just wastes a ton of energy.
Yeah.
Let's just skip all this unethical stuff in Doctor Stone, please.
Yeah. Well, Doctor Stone members are built different.
Fair enough.
But no, it's all a big question. It's all a valid question. I don't think that it is wrong for you as an individual to participate in the culture you're in.
Mm.
I think lobbying for change and better and like talking to your congressperson and doing everything, that's the right way to do it.
Right,
You don't
having-
have Yeah, if you want change, lobby Congress and like be an activist for change.
Yeah.
Don't and you know, if you want to give up the electronics to make a point and like kind of be a martyr, that's probably a good thing to do. Makes you look like less of a hypocrite, but I think you also need technology to make
Yeah,
change
effective
in this
change
world.
now.
Right.
Yeah, so it's definitely a double-edged sword. I really don't have a definitive answer, but I think you can reasonably have some without
Yeah.
being a terrible person.
I mean, yeah, just like open the conversation about it, bring it to people's attention,
Yeah.
have people learn or know about this so more and more people are like, hey, we should try to like petition Apple to change their business practices.
Well, and that's something too. So you always hear people say like bring jobs back to America, bring jobs back to America. And in part of that, that's because we want low-skilled workers to get a better chance here in America. But also, we know labor in America is much more ethically sourced than in other countries.
Yeah.
So there's actually a legitimate argument to not have companies source their labor and products from foreign countries.
Yeah.
Especially the least ethical. Like, if you want to source in Germany, fine. Because we know Germany has their crap together.
Yeah.
Right.
But, you know, and honestly, actually, the microchips, a lot of them come out of Taiwan and South Korea, and those countries are actually pretty good. It's just like, you know,
It's China.
China, Singapore, it's almost all electrical components come out of Asia.
Oh,
Like,
jeez.
it's ridiculous. Some out of South America, but mostly Asia.
Mostly Asian.
Yeah, and so, you know, it's a toss-up if an Asian country is good or dictatorial.
Yeah.
They're actually a really split continent, unlike
Mhm.
Europe.
So,
Okay.
I'd like to bring this back around to something a little more lighthearted, because that was super deep, talking about protectionism. And
Yeah.
so Jobs gets ousted in the mid 80s.
Mm-hmm.
He starts a computer company called Next. It goes absolutely nowhere. It is garbage. Terrible devices, super expensive. Nobody wants it. People think Steve Jobs has really lost his touch. Well, it's good news because Apple at the same time is just tanking. All right, this is mostly in the 90s. The Macintosh heavily carried for about 7 years. Then in the early 90s, they start doing the same thing. In fact, Apple is almost copying Next. So they're making garbage.
So they're
Next is making
both companies
garbage.
are making garbage.
Making garbage. Like
This
now,
allows Windows to
PCs
rise.
Windows PCs now are just absolutely killing it.
Yeah.
Apple stock is just in the tank. It's totally in the tank. And the current current CEO, of course, they're on a board. They're publicly traded. So the current CEO, cannot remember his name for the life of me, but he goes, Steve, we would really love to now, Woz has been out of the picture for the last 12 years, 10 years.
Mhm.
They go, Jobs, we want you back in a senior consultant role. And he goes, okay, that sounds good. And so he's just kind of dipping his toes in. He is kind of, on the fence, but it comes out that he buys massive amounts of stock, Apple stock, massive, like tens of millions of dollars worth of Apple stock. Of course, when you buy stock, the company can see where it's coming from, and it's like one individual bought tens of millions of dollars of Apple stock at its absolute lowest when it looks like Jobs isn't coming back, and like it looks like it's never going to come back up to its meteoric rise levels. That's at that same time, Steve Jobs is like, all right, well, I'll just come back and I'll just run this thing and we'll just fix it. And he's filling his pockets. But it's at this time that Apple opens a animation studio called Pixar. Pixel Art. Pixar
Right.
Studios. So from this, we have a string of movies that come out that
Are all
I
bangers.
think just
Yeah.
revolutionized the film industry.
Mm-hmm.
You have Toy Story, Bug's Life, Toy Story 2 coming out at this time, and then Finding Nemo. This is between 95 and 2002. So without Jobs' return, we probably don't have this stuff because Jobs was just throwing money at Pixar like it was nothing. Just like, here, take more, take more, take more, take more. Like, make it happen. So, do we think that now, obviously, Disney comes around later on, Bob Iger, and that's a whole other ordeal. But how important do you think that that decision was to just start pumping money into Pixar in the late '90s?
I mean,
Uh,
I'm assuming he's doing that to compete with Disney when it comes to making movies and animation. You know, you got, because what was this, back in the 90s?
This is late '90s. This is like 94, 95,
Yeah,
and then
and
movies start rolling out in 95 to 2002.
I mean, here's the thing: you got all these 2D Disney films that are absolute bangers. You got Hercules, you got Beauty and the Beast, you have Mulan, you have Aladdin, just to name a few.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're fighting the
And-
Disney revival. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're fighting the
Yeah,
they're
exactly.
fighting that uphill battle for the Disney against the Disney revival.
Successfully
And they're
as
trying to
well?
they're trying to innovate and make 3D animation, as we can see in like the Toy Story films, and eventually I think Monsters Inc. So it's like, okay, damn. I think
So
this is
here's-
just them
oh, go ahead.
competing. Oh, I was just gonna finish my thought saying I think this is just them trying to compete with Disney back in the 90s.
I think it's really interesting. I think a lot of creativity doesn't affect where humanity will end up in the long term because I think these ideas, a lot of them will come, periodically, but where they are or when these ideas come and how they're executed affects how much money is invested into them, which affects how quickly that technology develops. I don't think without Toy Story, 3D animation software would be I think today's 3D animation software would be where it was in maybe 2010 without Pixar. Maybe
So-
even further back.
Yeah.
I don't want to cut you off, but I want to make
I-
2 quick notes of that. They
Mhm.
were using proprietary technology and equipment. They're using in-house
Yeah.
stuff. This is stuff that they
Mhm.
invented. And I just want to I wanted to make sure I had that right. So Jobs became the majority shareholder of
Mhm.
Pixar. He called it Pixar, but it was the computer division at Lucasfilm. He purchased it in 1986, and they really start now. It's not doing anything. Remember that dead period between Jobs being ousted in the middle 80s, 84, 85, and the early 90s. So it kind of is just doing nothing for a long time. And then we have the revival, but I just wanted to get that in. But yeah, they're using all their own stuff. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
but that
still-
encourages it's seen that it can be successful. It encourages other people to develop similar software. So I really don't know if 3D modeling and even computer, animation would be where it was. And honestly, I'm of mixed opinion about that because I'm someone who enjoys 3D Disney films and Pixar films, but I actually kind of wishes every now and again they would throw us a 2D animated one because I
Yeah.
love the old ones, The Lion King, Mulan, like. Just every now and then, maybe one out of every 5, give us an old classic 2D.
At least
But I get
Disney.
it, 3D's cheaper. What?
It's
Yeah,
at
at
least
least
Disney.
Disney.
So something interesting I was reading about Toy Story a couple days ago. this is their technology, all right, to render 30 seconds of film of Toy Story 1 took a week. It took 1 week for one computer to render
Do
30
half a
seconds.
minute.
Yeah,
That's
because it
insane.
would take, whatever, so
in
many hours
theory-
per film or per frame. Yeah.
Well,
So
of
in
course,
theory,
Now,
it's so-
they had about 72 computers going on at once.
Right.
But the fact that it took a week to render 30 seconds, they said now that they could re-render Toy Story 1 in less time than it takes to watch it. Like how much
Jeez.
with
So-
the technology we have
so
now.
in-
Which is
So in
nuts.
theory, it would take them back then a month to render 2 minutes.
well,
That's
and here,
insane.
okay, I
Yes.
want to inject this because in games you always hear like, oh, this is a pre-rendered cutscene. It always looks much better than an in-game rendered. That's because it's really just essentially a video. They can put all that processing power into just moments. So you can really think of it like this. Imagine in 1995 having ray tracing. That's essentially what they're trying to do, where they're
Yeah.
Yeah.
animating for something that the video games at the time could not even comprehend
Okay.
doing
Yes.
in live time.
Yeah.
So that's why it's so complex.
So think about this. So at the same time, during this time period, the Nintendo 64 is out, right? In
Yeah.
1995, Toy Story 1 comes out. In 1996, the 3D Mario game comes out. Is that
64?
64.
Mario
Super
64.
Mario 64. Yeah.
I couldn't remember if it was called Super Mario 64. Yeah. So Mario 64, and think about how
And Crash Bandicoot.
Terrible.
And
And
Crash
Crash
Bandicoot.
One.
And
Yeah.
Crash
To bring it
Bandicoot.
all
Think about-
bring it all full
think
circle.
think about how terrible those games look.
Yeah,
How
in comparison to Toy
terrible.
Story. And I will actually say,
Unbelievable.
I've actually gone back and seen Toy Story recently, and it doesn't really hold
Does not
up.
up
No,
well.
it
does not
doesn't.
hold up well at all.
No.
But like for the time, you stop to think and compare to those, and you're like, wow,
It's nuts.
that's impressive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Toy Story, a children's
Yeah.
film in the early 2000s, a horror film in 2022.
That is
Yeah,
hilarious.
really.
Yes. It is pretty crazy how, like, and that's the thing that struck me, and that's why I started getting the juices flowing. I'm watching Toy Story 1, like I said a couple days ago, and you see executive producer Steve Jobs. You're like, man, that is crazy to think about.
Oh yeah.
This guy has his freaking hand in everything. Like, he is so crucial to the culture in the early 2000s. Like, Apple was everything from 2000 to 2010. So,
Yeah.
which brings me to now my next point, and I want to know what you guys think. Ryan, you're probably going to be a little more in tune, since we're iPhone users, with the products that they've been putting
Android
out lately. But
myself.
yes, do you think with now Tim Cook at the helm, and I'm not saying, I mean, it could be anybody.
Mhm.
It's a tough act to follow, man. Steve Jobs is a tough act to follow. But do you think that we've been a little, and by we, I mean Apple. I don't know why I put we,
users.
but
yeah.
Apple users.
Like, have we been okay with the complacent? Has Apple been complacent in the last couple of years with their devices? Like, have we seen revolution like we did like once a decade before 2010? Like in the 70s, of course, we have the Apple One. The 80s, you have the Macintosh. The 90s, the iPod. The very miniature, the iPod Shuffle in your pocket. The Walkman in your pocket comes out. The early 2000s, you have the iPhone, and then in the 2010s, we have the iPad. So I just don't. Where did we? Why are we starting to fall apart here? As users, we're saying it's all right. Just keep pumping out iPhones year after year, and just add a digit to them.
So
So, go ahead.
I was I was thinking
confused.
on the lines of, okay, so I think a lot of the innovations they're adding today, I can't speak specifically on Apple's behalf. I can speak off my own experiences. I think moving forward, a lot of technology is like doing a lot of stuff like inside the device, under the hood, I guess would be the best way to describe it. Like, not so much, oh, so it has this brand new feature that you can do this, like how the PlayStation 3, for instance, they introduced Blu-ray. That wasn't on PlayStation 2. how PlayStation 2, they were like, hey, you can watch DVDs on this device. The Xbox, you can't. The GameCube, I think you have to buy an adapter to do that. But what I'm getting at is, I think what Apple is doing is they're just trying to like fix things or improve upon things under the hood, in the sense of, okay, so all right, we hit 4K with like the video or the screen quality, cool. Let's make it so loading up this app takes 2 less frames. You know what I mean? Something like minute
Yeah.
like that, but
So
I don't know if that's considered
you're saying-
complacent or not.
It's what you're, but no, I totally get it. What you're saying is, it's like, all right, maybe not complacent in the way it's like we just keep pumping out the same thing every year, but it's like making small improvements to something that could be argued. I'm not making this argument that you say could be is perfected. The iPhone might be perfected by now, but like
Mhm.
making small hardware improvements. I get what you mean.
Like
Ryan, what do you
quality
think?
of life improvements.
Yeah.
Well, you see this in every industry. Is the longer it's been established, the less there is to make true groundbreaking revolution in.
Right.
Like let's look at transportation. Okay, you spend 1,000 years refining the horse and buggy, and they get the horse and buggy about as good as it can be. What more can you do with a horse and buggy? It's closed. It's somewhat comfortable. You got Then the car comes along, and it's like 10% efficient. It's a bad
It's garbage.
efficiency.
Yeah.
And it's not comfortable. It's not fast. It's bad car. And now
Probably dangerous.
absolutely
Hard to maintain. Probably hard to maintain.
Absolutely. No power steering,
Yeah.
no windshield. Like first cars, bad.
Yeah.
But 10 years later, they're much better. 10 years later, they're still better, not as much in the last 10 years. The gap keeps shrinking where, they come out with cars yearly and they're not all that different. Now, there is going to be another groundbreaking revolution, and you could say it's as big as going from the buggy to the cars, the car to the electric car, and that's
Right,
coming out.
right.
That's
And the
in
self
pipeline.
and the automated.
And the automation. So I think Apple is at this point where unless they come up with something really creative, that those cars were inching up in efficiency throughout time. So, in a lot of our lifespan, they were in the upper 30s for efficiency, which the theoretical limit for efficiency is 60%, but that's theoretical, not practical. Practical, we've seen, I think, close to 50, but not reach 50. Efficiency is really hard to chase. And so now it's breached into 40, but it's low 40s, and it's kind of staying there, and it's really hard to push it any higher, especially for the kind of cars that people drive in their day-to-day lives. So they just keep chasing that, but it's marginal returns. They keep getting less and less because there's a threshold, and I think that's kind of what Apple is facing, where there is a concept called Moore's Law, and it's existed, I think, since the 70s, where it's the number of components on a square, on a surface of a computer component. The amount of components on that surface will double every 2 years, except Moore's Law has slowed down significantly in the last 10 years.
Really?
Oh,
Yes.
Well, there's
Okay.
that, I hate to interrupt you, but there is that graph where it's the size of the microchip is it's the chart shows exponential growth, but what it means is it is getting scaled down exponentially over time.
Yeah. Because it doubles. Because it doubles and then doubles and then doubles.
So you're saying we're starting to reach we're kind of flattening off a little bit.
Yeah, so we're getting the graph, and it's going along, and it's exponential, and it still will double every now and then, but it's widening out how long it takes to double. And the reason for that is actually, this is going to sound crazy, our insulators and conductors aren't good enough for how small we're getting. We're getting to the point where we're so small that electrons will pass through insulators. They'll just go right through because there is not enough resistance. We're getting to the point where we can't go smaller. So really,
nuts.
It is crazy. Getting better electronics, unless we get new developments like solid state or quantum computing, cloud streaming computation to us, there isn't too much more to develop in terms of traditional hardware. I'm sure there's some, and there could be new ideas and implemented and new materials and different experimentations. But in terms of like just raw, do what we've been doing, gain it smaller, we're kind of at the end of that line.
Yeah.
So that leaves Apple and the rest of the technology business in a really rough place of, well, what do we sell now?
Yeah.
So
Sell the same
go ahead.
phone, just like with a slight change to make it look different.
mhm.
So
And instead of putting the power button right here, let's put it 1 inch lower.
they made a change like that. They went from the top to the bottom, but
Fuck.
or top to the side.
These
Well,
uplinks,
actually, as a
okay.
quick aside, that's what the last iOS updates have felt like. Software updates.
Yeah, they just felt like, oh, cool, the calendar icon has changed. That is really sick.
Yeah, they
So
move something
cool.
around or change how you do it.
Or,
Like,
there's like 26 new emojis. You're like, oh man, I'm gonna use all of these. This is so cool.
yeah.
Oh my
so
gosh.
that's how their software updates have felt too.
Here's where I'm
I-
kind of coming down on this. I go, all right, complacent, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what I'll say. So, of course, Steve Jobs passes away, and we kind of slowed down a little bit. And in the last 7 years,
Mm-hmm.
we've seen the invention of, let me say this carefully, the Apple Watch, not a smartwatch. They were
Mhm.
not the first to do this. The AirPods, not the first to do wireless earbuds. But the thing I keep coming back to, and I do own AirPods too, that's another thing I've just realized.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Yeah, you know what? Like, maybe they're not breaking ground every day like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's okay. But the thing is they just do it better than everyone else. Like,
Yeah.
it's just like I just use the iPhone and it's just better. I put my AirPods in, they just sound better. You know, like there's just something about like it's still, and this is the next question I want to ask you. And Ryan, again, you'll probably be a little more in tune with it. Is I really do believe like, okay, yeah, you know what? And in fact, actually, iPhone got rid of the home button. That was something that was kind of a big deal.
It's
And
weird.
they got rid of the 3.5 millimeter jack in 2016, and everyone was up in
Yeah.
arms. And now we don't think about a 3.5 millimeter jack anymore. Like
I
no
do.
one cares.
Because Bluetooth.
Well,
Bluetooth.
Well,
I mean,
yes.
yeah,
I
you
mean,
got Bluetooth,
interacting with the phone device though, I
Yeah.
never go, man. I wish I had my 3.5 millimeter jack on here. I never say that. And then they got rid of the home button. I said, oh my god. All right. Well, of course, John.
I'm a little jealous, John. Actually, I'm not gonna lie. Actually, I still have. I have an old, but I still
Okay.
have. But
But then I go, all right. You get
The
rid of the
thing
home
is-
button. I go, oh man, this is whack. And then you're
Yeah.
like, no, actually, it just works and it's fine. Like.
Mhm.
To me, it's revolutionary. Like you, John, saying it a different way. It's like, John, you're saying little hardware improvements, definitely still important. To me, I say revolutionary in the fact that they're constantly ahead of the curve. Like I still think they are. Like you read the story last year where they go, or 2 years ago, it might be at this point. Man, time's flying by. But they go, we're done shipping a charger in the box of the iPhone. Like you're gonna just
that's-
yeah, John. See that kind of guttural reaction? Like, what are you talking about?
That's
Um,
weird.
Yeah,
That's like
but,
saying you're gonna give me a. That's like saying you're gonna ship
Yeah.
a PlayStation without the
Yeah.
power outlet
power cord.
cable.
Yeah, I know.
Power cord.
And guess what? It didn't matter. It literally did not matter. People are like, yeah, because you know what? We're starting to use USB-C. They call it Lightning. It's kind of the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything's Lightning port now.
No, Lightning is not USB-C.
Yeah,
I thought
it's
they were.
not.
I thought they were like. the exact same thing.
Lightning is the proprietary. Hold on, let me actually pull it up right here. Lightning is the Apple charger. See right
Yeah.
here, just a
Yeah.
traditional. Lightning is USB-C.
Oh,
is-
are they different?
Yeah, they're different.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
'Cause
USB-C.
My iPad takes the one on the holding in your right hand. Okay, yeah, my iPad would take the ones that you guys are holding there. Yeah. Okay, I thought they were the same thing. Okay. So
You
my
and
bad,
actually, as a quick aside, the reason Apple is switching to USB-C is because the EU banned Lightning because it is just less effective.
Sick.
But Apple had proprietary technology and they
So-
demanded they use it.
That's awesome. So, well, besides my small error there, but the
And
point
plus,
is
isn't
like,
USB-C better?
It's just a higher data transfer rate and
Yeah.
cheaper.
Okay.
so point being that everyone was like, oh, yeah, I already have an iPhone charger. Like, and guess what? It just doesn't matter anymore.
Mhm.
And like the fact is like if Apple wants to move forward using USB-C, you'll buy a couple USB-C chargers from them or from a third party, but it'll just be that, and then from now on you're just gonna get the phone and you're gonna be just fine. And to
Mhm.
me that is revolutionary in a way, because you gotta think, man,
Yes.
there's just no chance though, like that Samsung in 2016 is like, we're getting rid of our 3.5 millimeter jack to make way for our Galaxy Buds. It's like they're gonna keep those, but Apple is like, no, man, like you want to listen to music, like this is how we're gonna do that. Maybe you don't like that business practice of saying, all right, the way to listen to headphones now is with an adapter that we make, or you buy the expensive AirPods. But to me, I go, you know what, man, like eventually this stuff is gonna be dirt cheap,
Mhm.
and that's just gonna be like AirPods are eventually gonna take the place of the traditional earpods that they always were shipped with, the famous white earpods that you see in movies and whatever else
Mhm.
that always
Mhm.
connect
The
to
old
the
iPhone
3.5 jack.
4, like black silhouette with the white. Yeah.
Exactly. That's, I feel like I just eventually we're gonna get to a point where it's like, all right, this is what it is. Like
Yeah.
Mhm.
it is what it is, and they've cut down now. Whatever. I'm not gonna air out how I feel about if we're wasting, materials and natural resources. That's a topic for a different day. But they have cut down significantly on their carbon emissions and their carbon footprint. So if you like that sort of thing, that's awesome. If you don't, well, you're kind of
Yeah, that's
neutral to
kinda
it. But it's
cool.
like it's been working and it works.
So something I'll say about this, are they complacent, is that there's expectations for Apples that the other tech companies just don't have on them. So I think it's kind of unreasonable that with the technology stalling that we're like, well, why isn't Apple still making Revolution when there's less to do? But and also for them like saying like, oh, this is how we see the future. We're kind of forcing you into it. That's fine if it's actual progress, but if they make an error, then it's going to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it is a higher risk, higher reward situation.
Mhm.
Definitely.
In terms of Apple, the way all their devices integrate together is really cool. Over
Totally
the
forgot about
course,
that.
they've been working to make it a more holistic technology experience, integrating more health, integrating more music, integrating more arts and creativity, integrating more math, and like it's slowly getting better. I'm still partial to Windows because it's more modular. It's more up to the end user what they want to do with it, whereas iPhone is a
Right.
little more hand-holdy, more
Very rigid.
constrained.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
rigid.
So they serve different functions, and that's completely fine. But I think
Definitely.
I think that they are a higher cost, higher luxury item than a lot of the rest of the industry, and that's
Totally.
fine for them. There's actually, funny enough, a conspiracy theory. It's somewhat reasonable,
Of course. Yeah, of course you know this. Yeah.
a reasonable, fun one, not harmful at all. That Apple helped promote the meme that like broke people don't have AirPods. Do you remember
Oh
those
my
memes
God,
from
yeah.
like 4 years ago where it's like, oh, you don't have AirPods? Sorry, I don't speak broke. Shit like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a conspiracy theory that Apple helped promote those memes so that people would think that they could flex by having AirPods, and so
And
more
so,
people would buy AirPods.
dude,
Oh,
I get now.
jeez.
So that was like, yeah,
I
like
could see that.
5 years ago. I definitely remember that because I remember being like a freshman, sophomore in high school, and
Yeah,
then they just started popping up everywhere. I was like,
everywhere.
what the fuck?
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah,
what is going on? I was like, everyone
Okay.
has them now. This is so nuts. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? I was late to the party. I didn't get them till 2019, 2020. But
I
I was
mean-
like, holy smokes! Like everyone has them now.
I mean, if
I
we're
use
talking,
Raycons because I watch YouTube.
I mean, if we're talking Bluetooth earbuds, my first pair was winter 2021.
Yeah, I wasn't much ahead of you, John. I got Raycons and they're fine. I think
Oh, I
that,
thought
I haven't
Raycons were nuts.
I haven't
mean-
compared them to Apple, but I might at some point.
I don't even
So-
know what brand I got it. I just got it for like my birthday or for Christmas this
I
past
think you have
year.
I think you have J Labs, which are like the kind of generic form, but they're still pretty high quality.
I don't know.
Because I also have a pair of those when I lost one of my Raycons, which I found 6 months later.
Mhm.
So do you think that Ryan, like I said, you probably could speak a little bit closer to this. Do you think that Apple is still producing high quality? Okay, maybe not groundbreaking, but still very high quality products.
I think our
And we're not even
I-
touching
perception,
computers. We're kind of keeping this to the phone and the watch discussion. But
Yeah.
right, not so much computer
because I don't
Or-
use those.
or
so I don't
like
know.
PC.
For for computers, they are not at the high end. They have a more limited experience, a more tailored experience for artists, and that's kind of their niche.
Yeah.
And they do well in it, but they are not the cutting edge of computers. For phones, they're the absolute peak experience currently.
Yep.
Less you can do with it. Their cost is coming down, but also them being the quality option, that gap is shrinking too. But it is still, you know, they'll charge you more and you'll get a faster experience out of it. Though I do want to say, I do believe the rumors that there's planned obsolescence. So I got my current iPhone 5 years ago, and it was kind of an older phone then. It was the iPhone SE, which is the body of a 5, which is tiny, with the internals of a 6. So
Yeah.
we're up to the iPhone 13.
Yeah, I think my
This
phone-
is a
Yeah,
while
mine-
ago.
I think mine's 4 years old. I think my iPhone's 4 years old.
So you probably are seeing with like a 7, 8,
I have a 10.
a 10. Okay, yeah.
So it might be
So
3 years old. So it might be 3 years old.
yeah, so I think we're on the 13. No, that could be 4. My phone runs slow at this point. I can't run Sudoku, GPS, and music all at the same time. Which I know that's 3 apps, but like 3 pretty basic apps. Like it's
Yeah.
Sudoku.
Yeah.
Squares and numbers.
Yeah. So I have noticed some real slowing, and so I don't think I'm gonna go with Apple again, even though I do really like their user interface. It is
iOS
the best.
fucking awesome.
I'm not used to
is-
it, so
Well,
I
it's been
have,
done. Like it took me like a week, and I was like, all right, this is fucking sick.
yeah.
fair enough, I
Very little
suppose.
time.
I think their user interface is very good. I kind of don't like how it's like your iCloud is out of storage. Pay for the subscription. Like
know.
every week it tells me to, and it's like no,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Um,
I'm
but
sitting at 64 gigs out of 64 gigs right now. And it's like, you really should think about. I'm like, I don't want to. I'm not doing
Yeah.
this.
yeah, stop telling me.
Stop asking. Me. I'll delete stuff.
Yeah.
My goodness.
So yeah, so that's kind of my Apple experience, and it's been a fine phone. I like it a lot. I don't regret getting an Apple. It will not be my next choice, but it served me well. It's fine. What's that?
Are you joining Team Android then?
I think I will join Team Android. Yeah.
Okay.
Wow. Say goodbye to your blue messages, dork.
yeah, that's actually unironically one
I know,
of my
it's super
bigger
important.
regrets.
It's super
Yeah.
important, dude. I messaged people like they did a poll a couple of years ago, and they're like, "Why do you have an iPhone?" And there was like a significant chunk was like iMessage. It's like Jesus.
Yeah.
Like,
What?
It's a lot.
You don't want
They were
okay, so
polled, and they were like, Why did you purchase an iPhone?" And like, I don't remember the exact figure, so I don't want to say something, but it was like a good not majority, but definitely a large portion that said iMessage was the most important reason in their purchase.
What is
So
that, like
what's-
iMessage,
Yeah,
the way you
it's-
text, yeah.
Yeah, you don't need an actual phone plan to text to someone else with an iPhone, which is kind of cool. There's
Okay.
also what is the photo sharing thing for people with iPhones close to each other?
AirPlay.
Yeah,
AirDrop.
AirDrop is also pretty cool.
AirDrop's
I haven't
cool.
used it much, but
Yeah, AirDrop, but also the screen mirroring. So if you're on it, if you have another Apple device, you click screen mirroring, and in 2 seconds, you're up in your screen. Your phone is being projected onto a TV.
yeah,
I can
Yeah,
do
like
that
that
on
is-
my phone.
Hey, but all right, fair enough. And like maybe they didn't invent it. I don't know. But like, there's always that thing that I keep coming back to. Maybe I sound like a fanboy, but it's like I don't know, man. They just do it better than everyone else. Like, and like maybe I'm biased. I probably am, but it's like the last time I used an Android was 2016. I had a Samsung Galaxy S4. And that thing was fine, dude. It was snappy. Like the screen got super bright, which was important to me. Like I liked being able to see everything, playing Clash of Clans and stuff. Super responsive.
Right.
And then I was like, all right, like that phone. I think it took a dip in the pool. I think I left it in my pocket. And then I was
Yikes.
and then I was it was pretty bad. And then I was like, my parents were like, all right, well we can go and get a phone. And I go, you know what? Like I think it's time. I think it's time to make the change. So I went with an iPhone 7 Plus, and that was when they had the fake home button, It was still there, but remember it like vibrated. didn't actually
Mhm.
move. And that
Yeah.
was like a whole other
That's
thing. That was
weird.
like the next. It was like a middle step between the iPhone 7 was super weird. It was like a middle step between the home button on the 6. The 7 was a fake home button that you could change the sensitivity to it, and then the 8 they got rid of it, or the 10 they got rid of it. So it was like there was like a weird time period where the home button was fake. But
Okay,
point
then.
being was like I just was like, man, like I've used both, like, and like at the time getting that 7, I was like, dude, it looks better, it runs better. At the time, obviously now, like you're saying, your phone slowed down.
Mhm.
Like at the time though, that thing was
Yeah.
running fantastic. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't used an Android recently, so maybe I'm too biased to say, but I don't know. I still believe like they're just better. Like I don't know,
Fair
but you
enough.
pay unfortunately you pay quite the premium for it.
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
kind of sucks.
Well, but also mine has lasted me 5 years, which
Yeah,
in
exactly,
in smartphone years that's a lot.
That's a
Yeah.
lot, man. That's definitely a lot.
Which is kind of crazy. But also I want to clarify to John about the iPhone and like the green chat. So with iPhones, if you're in a group chat and everyone has an iPhone, or if you're DMing one to one, and the other person has an iPhone, the messages will be blue, and it's a very satisfying color blue. It is good. It is a good looking blue. If one person in the group chat has an Android, it turns to a kind of ugly green.
Right? I mean, you can see that's close enough.
Yeah.
Try and hide, but that's your blue
I
there.
mean,
Yeah, I know you're all grayed out. But here's our group chat.
I mean, I'm blue right here.
Here's
Yeah.
our group chat now. You can see that does not look the same. Like,
Yeah.
that's
Kinda.
gray and green.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of not coming through amazing. I don't want to have everyone. read
It's
messages, but
it's the saturation.
yeah.
This is mine.
Um.
You guys are gray. I'm blue.
Yeah.
So that's what it would look like. That's exactly what it would look like on iMessage.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So they kind of psychologically twist your arm. Where like, if you're the one friend in a friend group who has an Android, everyone is gonna be like, "Oh, green message," because it is not as satisfying a shade of green as the blue shade is. And I think that is intentional though. And
It definitely could be. They're like,
My
let's make
goodness.
this look like shit.
it is
wanna
not a good shade of green. I'm
So,
not gonna lie.
What is it, like puke green?
It's pretty bad.
It's not puke, but it isn't
it's
satisfying.
Okay.
So I want to pivot here because there is, news come out a couple years ago that Apple's going to try their hand in the car industry, the vehicle
weird.
industry, the automated driving industry. And then more recently, I want to say last summer was the release of the what do they call them? It's the Apple headphones, over-the-ear headphones, super expensive, like $500.
Mm-hmm.
And they're more for, we can come back to this, but it's like that's for the creator, the music artist, super high quality, stuff like that.
Mm.
All right. But I just want to kind of feel, or hear where you guys are thinking, where does Apple go in the future? Like, do you see them being super successful if they have, if they have eggs in every basket? Ryan, you can go first. Let's be a little more organized here. Ryan, what do you think?
Okay.
John,
I-
John, go.
No.
Okay, I'll
So
go.
I am generally
Ryan.
I'm generally pessimistic for the technology atmosphere in the next decade because of Taiwan. This is getting into geopolitics. China claims that they own Taiwan currently. It is the old Chinese people who fled the Communist Revolution, and they went out to another land and they settled a new country and they call it Taiwan. And China says, "Oh, we own that. Those people, they're still ours. They've always been ours." And America has now had a definitive stance. We've just said we acknowledge that.
Very wishy-washy.
Yeah, we've said we acknowledge that you think you own those people, essentially.
Yeah.
And Taiwan has, I think, 90% of all semiconductor-related technology for processing and manufacturing. That's a lot. Semiconductors are how everything functions. China really wants to invade Taiwan. They're probably going to do it.
They're probably going to do it, yeah.
No one is probably going to stop them.
Sure, that's also correct.
It is going to be worse than Ukraine. And I
Yeah.
hate to say that,
Definitely. No, yeah, it's kind of Yeah, 70. I just wanted to look it up while we were saying that 75% of the production takes place in East Asia, and 90% of advanced chips are made in Taiwan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
90%.
That's what we're talking about. So
It's
when
really
it
bad.
comes to auto, computers, televisions, everything, the future, we need to divest from Taiwan and start getting these processing spread to South America, to Europe, to America,
right.
because we will be screwed when we can't rely on Taiwan. And honestly, I would personally, I wish we were more pro Taiwan. That's the stance I would take, but we're not, and we're reliant on a country whose security is shaky at best.
Yeah.
All right.
So in terms of Apple, and I bring all that up because Apple is so closely tied to advanced semiconductors and chips.
Totally.
Where I think their future is screwed entirely out of their own control.
Yeah.
If this situation that I think is very likely, and a lot of people think is very likely, doesn't come to pass, I do think they have a bright future of just, making luxury items that are marginally better than the rest of the industry for a slight premium. That's my general take on it, but I think
that's kind of where they are now. Like, realistically, when you're talking about raw computing power, I don't think there's much of a difference between the new M1 chips that have come out and they've put them in the phones and your modern Samsung, your modern Android. Like, but the difference is like how well it works with the operating system. But like, you're saying definitely a marginal difference, definitely a premium for that marginal difference, and to be a part of the ecosystem. But John, what do you think? Where is that? What's Apple look like in the next 10 years?
So I don't know as much about geopolitics as Ryan does, to be completely honest, but I will say what I'm thinking. I think with like personal computers like desktops and whatnot, I really just cannot see them getting that revolutionary or that much better when it comes to quality. I think the issue is I'm of the opinion Windows is getting better in the similar sense as what we were saying about like cars and other, I guess, or Apple products, like it's slowly getting better, at least computing wise, and with the user interface, we just said Windows 10 is the best that we have so far. And it's going to be a while before we even see Windows 11 being better, but yeah, I think personal desktops is pretty stale with Apple, and I don't see it getting any better. With iPhones, or with just phones in general with Apple, I mean, I see it like continuing its slowly increasingly better trend unless something happens in Taiwan, as Ryan mentioned. If it does, then I don't know what would happen at that point, but if it doesn't,
it'd be bad.
If they can still get, what was it, the microchips or something?
Yeah, semiconductors.
Yeah.
I don't know the technicalities of it, but they're super.
If they can get every single component they need to make a running iPhone in 2022, then I think they'll continue to make small quality of life improvements, or even improvements as weird or as crazy as getting rid of the aux port was in 2016, or the home button. What was it, like 2 or 3 years later?
Yeah, 2018.
So actually, I do have.
Sorry, I was gonna finish.
Yeah, finish.
So with the whole cars thing, I think it's a little weird. I don't know, it just feels weird to me. I'm assuming they're focused on like including like the smart technology to make it like maybe like an automated GPS system or something, or even like create the self-driving aspect of a car, but not actually like physically make the tires, make all like the engine, make all this stuff.
That's probably correct. You're probably
if that's the case, then I could see that, and them partnering with like Tesla or something, or Ford.
I don't know if they would partner. I mean, they'd probably want to compete. They'd probably want to compete with Tesla. Maybe. And they have a lot more cash on hand. But no, you're probably right. Like, I don't think Apple wants to go out and start manufacturing rubber.
Yeah.
You know,
No.
like they'll outsource that stuff, but the body
Right.
of it and the brain of it is gonna
Well,
be Apple.
even Honda, who's been in the industry for a century, gets their brake pads from some company, and their design and assembly. They don't make the tires, the brakes,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
suspension.
Yeah.
They go out to other companies who specialize in that part.
They're marketing and
Right.
experience, like they're marketing and experience.
Yeah.
You know, and that's what
Um,
Apple's gonna find themselves doing.
So I also want to contribute this because I think you'll find it interesting. Do you know what BlackBerry does today? They're
No,
still a
No.
running
idea.
company.
No idea.
I think it's really interesting. I think it ties into Apple going into this industry. They do computer security for cars.
Really?
Do you remember like 4 years
Huh.
ago there were those videos of people hacking into cars and driving them remotely?
No.
No.
I
That
don't
was the
remember
thing. That was the thing.
That was
Jeez,
a
oh man.
thing.
And it was mostly people showing off vulnerabilities. It wasn't people actually taking over cars.
Yeah.
It did happen a couple
Right.
times where people just hackers took over cars that people were in and driving. That did happen a couple times, but like a lot of people were demonstrating, like, look at these weaknesses. BlackBerry came in, and their majority market now is doing cybersecurity for cars. And so it'd actually be interesting if Apple bought BlackBerry to do cybersecurity for their cars.
That would be super.
That would be weird.
Because think about how screwed up that is. Like
That'd be
iPhone,
full circle.
Apple took you out, murdered you in 2006, and then they were like, "Hey guys,
We're
we
in
need
for round
security."
2.
Now, realistically, Apple's pretty good with security. That's something we didn't get to, and it's fine. We don't have to, but Apple's
Oh,
pretty
they're the
good with
best.
keeping. Yeah, the Apple's very good at security and keeping your information private. In fact, you remember? I can't remember. It was some
There were some
horrific
like
mass
terrorists, and
shooting. Yeah.
the FBI wanted into the phone.
server in the phone. Apple was like, "Sorry, no." And I kind of was like, "Yeah, you know what? Good. Finally,
Yeah.
finally, someone just says no." Like
Mhm.
that, I really appreciated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As a principle, because you don't want to allow that slippery slope. Like, and
Mhm.
dude, Tim Cook, that was a hard decision, but like, I think it was the right one. Ultimately.
Yeah, and I do agree. And actually, getting into the cybersecurity, the reason they're so tight is because your phone will only actually download something from the App Store, and everything on the App Store is vetted, and not super, super well, like not perfectly, but well enough
Yeah.
where you'll only get infections through the App Store, and the App Store is vetted, so you
Yeah.
shouldn't get infections.
Right.
Generally speaking, there are a couple of workarounds that have been found out in the past, and BlackBerry actually was better in security. They were making phones as recently as 2016. Really good smartphones, and they were the best for security. They were actually used by our Congress people.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
as
didn't
like
know
their,
that.
not their burners, but like their professional devices.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
cool. That's cool.
That is cool.
But that was the last time they made phones, and they're out of that market entirely now. So for the current market, they're the best at security. I could see them doing it for cars, but they do security through the lens of limiting you so that your granny, 80-year-old granny, doesn't click on a mysterious link, thinks you want to cruise and
Yeah.
destroy your
Yeah.
phone. That's not an
Yeah.
option for on iPhone, which is kind of good, kind of bad. It's a phone for less computer literate people.
Mhm.
Yeah. Totally.
There are also
Because that's the
people with
idea.
bigger pockets.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's true
Sure.
too.
But this kind of brings. I'm glad you said that. Like, computer illiterate people. Because what was the idea with the Macintosh? It's like, we're gonna liberate you. You're not gonna be bogged down with constantly trying to figure out coding and specific programming languages. Like, they're like, no, you know what? You want to use a word typing document? Just do it. Just start typing. Write something.
Mhm.
You want to draw? Use our Paint software. Just draw.
Isn't
Use
that
your mouse.
Microsoft?
Well, yeah, I mean, they both copied each other. I mean, Apple stole a lot from Microsoft, and
And vice
Microsoft
versa.
stole a lot from Apple.
Okay.
Like, they definitely stole from each other, like, a lot. But it's like,
Windows you can do more, but it takes more setup, and you need to be computer literate. Apple just gives you something that works
like,
right out of the
here's
box.
here's the Paint app. Here's what Apple says, like, or here's what do they call it? Keynote. You want to work on a
Mhm.
presentation? Here's Keynote. It just works.
Mhm.
Like, here you go.
Meanwhile, Windows is like, oh well, you can
Buy
download
PowerPoint
anything.
and then buy it and then buy the suite, and it's like,
Yeah. Or you can go for open source online, and 40% of those are going to be viruses, so be careful. And Yeah, because that's the thing is Microsoft does, unless you're a student or in different situations, but for companies for sure, charge you for the software.
So,
Right.
kind of just wrap this up. Are we? I'll leave it with this. I know we don't have any prep work on it, but do we think, and we can end here, do we think that Apple needs to be broken up? Is it a monopoly, or are we violating trust laws?
I don't
Ryan, what
think
do you think?
Apple's. Oh, sorry. I was jumping
Um,
the gun.
Just saying, or I just want to stay organized so we're not like blah 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 talking over each other.
yeah. So legal definition of monopoly: 40% market share. I don't think they're there. I think they're diversified into different markets, and they do that because they know they can't grow too much in any one market. I think they're fine. Like,
Yeah.
if they start excising powers to quash other will be a problem. It can be addressed then, but for now, let them go. I don't have an issue.
Here's
John?
my question: do they still own Pixar?
No.
They
Everything's
don't.
now
Okay.
under Disney.
So Disney owns Pixar. Apple has nothing to do with Disney.
I'm
Am I
almost
re-
positive that sounds
I reading-
correct.
To my understanding,
okay.
I
yes.
think that sounds just
Okay.
about right.
I just wanted to make sure. So I am in agreement with Ryan in the sense that, okay, no, I don't think Apple needs like broken up. I don't think Apple's the company that needs broken up. I think Disney's the company.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. We will get to a Disney discussion because that is
Yeah.
long
No,
over.
well,
Yeah.
we already have, I think.
Oh yeah, I think you're right. I might need another one.
Yeah, we need a
Yeah,
second
we
one.
probably could. We probably could.
We
which
need
is
another
nice.
complain about Disney episode, pretty please, with the cherry on top. Well, I guess we got the Kingdom Hearts one coming up.
Okay.
True.
We'll shoehorn it in there somewhere.
I'm sure.
But yeah, no, I agree. I think they're fine right now. I
Mhm.
think they're it feels like though, doesn't it kind of feel like they own the entire like smartphone market and the
No.
smartwatch market?
No.
Really?
No,
Yeah,
no.
they-
Between
To me, it just
I think they
seems
have-
like it.
I think they have reasonable competition with Samsung right now.
well,
and
not
I
just
think,
Samsung, but I've known friends who have Windows phones and
Yeah.
Google phones, and they're good.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
like-
with that competition, I think they're fine. If that competition just up and disappeared and everyone had an iPhone, then yeah, that's a problem.
Yeah, but they're not at that 40% threshold, and like I don't even think they're like too close. I think they're closer to 30.
Mhm.
So, and that's a healthy portion. Don't get me
Yeah.
wrong.
Not
But
bad.
for the biggest single competitor being around 30, that's kind of healthy.
Mhm.
All right. Very good.
All
I think
right.
we touched on everything I wanted to. I think Apple's a super fascinating company that kind of started off a little bit shaky in their dealings, especially Jobs, and kind of carried on the tradition. So that's
Yeah.
good to see.
Yeah.
I suppose. Okay.
So,
we ready for rankings?
Yes.
Mhm.
Are you guys
This is
ready?
gonna be weird
Like,
because this is definitely this is a weirder one. But yeah, I think I
like
think
it's
I
a
have
toss
it.
up? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
I think I'm
yeah,
ready.
kinda.
do
Yeah.
I
we
think
wanna
I'm
start,
pretty confident in mine.
do we want to start with player one?
Let's start with 3.
3, yeah.
Work our way up.
3? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1.
John?
On.
Yeah.
Hey
Okay.
man, if you're not in the ecosystem, you just don't get it.
Don't worry, I'm
Yeah.
about to surprise y'all for the next 2. Are we doing player 2?
Yeah.
Or yeah, that's how we
Player
always
2.
done it.
All
Yeah.
right. 3,
Okay.
2, 1. Dylan.
Yeah.
Who are you pointing at, Ryan?
Oh, our
To
window.
me, Ryan just pointed to my other monitor, so that's cool.
Oh, okay, that's funny. Yeah, for me, I'm pointing at Dylan.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Okay.
myself.
then
Okay,
we're in
should we go for
agreement.
player 1?
We're in
Oh
agreement.
wait. I actually voted wrong. No. Oh, I actually meant to vote for myself.
So you
I
want
also
it-
was gonna. I had a feeling you were gonna do that because I actually wanted to vote for myself. So John, you have a. Who'd you say 2?
You.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Oh, okay.
So I
There you go.
voted
Damn.
you. Who'd you vote
Yeah.
for, Dylan? Yourself?
Myself.
And then
yeah.
Ryan voted himself. Okay.
Yes.
Are we in agreement that then that
Misinput.
Ryan's player
Ryan
1?
actually Ryan had a misinput, literally.
Yeah, I had the biggest misinput, dude. My brain is just not working right now.
Oh man,
must
it's all
be,
mesh up there.
You
Yeah.
Must not be that smooth right now.
No, it's
Or
It's
I
too
guess it must be
smooth.
smooth.
It's
Yeah, it
extra
must be
smooth.
too
It
smooth.
is the only frictionless surface in the universe, actually.
Fair
really
enough.
smooth.
Are we in agreement?
Like-
Ryan's player 1.
I mean, Ryan's in disagreement, but John, you and I are in. Has this ever happened before? Where someone,
I think
Really?
it has. I think it's
where
been a
someone has
while
not
now.
voted for themselves to be the best? That's interesting.
Around.
No, and I'll justify my response. You really did a great job outlining this and, giving us the history and walking us through, and you have good opinions and just kind of really laid the
Yeah.
groundwork for a great
See,
discussion.
I just absolutely refuse to defend you in anything. So you're not going to hear that from me, Ryan. I just can't. I can't bring
Okay.
myself to
I
talk about
understand. I
anything
understand.
positive about you. So we'll just leave it. We'll just leave it
Yeah.
at that. No, honestly,
Okay, your vote says it, though.
yeah.
For me,
I
it was
stick with my
very,
vote.
very close. For me, it was very, very close. But I think
Mhm.
Ryan's
Ryan, I think you
contributions
just-
to the conversation were, I guess,
brought up
more
some very
helpful
interesting points.
than
Mhm.
Dylan's contributions in the sense of the history of Apple and whatnot. So
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate it.
Ryan's
Yeah,
player
okay.
1, I
Hey,
suppose.
overall high quality. John, you really shit the bed with this one, man.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
well,
I tried.
Actually, we should probably try and find a third person. If I'm being honest, we should what we should do is we just replace player 3 every week with someone who's a little more competent.
I think we mentioned that last part. We were like,
Yeah, well, it's interesting. That's still in my brain. Who was 3 last time?
you.
Oh yeah, well, that's sick. That is so cool. Oh man. Well, yeah, because I've been first, third, now second. All right, we're on the comeback,
Yeah.
baby.
I've
We're on
been
the
second,
comeback.
third.
We're gonna start rattling off some. Ryan, have you come in third besides Crash?
No, I don't think so. I think Crash is my only
All right,
one.
John, we need to start kind of working together.
Yeah, you two can
Yeah.
team up to get topics
We
you'll
totally
think I'll be
could.
bad in.
We totally could. We totally could.
You guys both do like a week of study,
What we'll
and
do is-
do a segment on Zoroastrianism, and you're like, oh Ryan, you don't know
Ryan,
about this?
Idiot.
Oh, what the heck is wrong with you,
No,
Ryan?
You know what we're gonna do, Ryan? You know what we're gonna do? We're just gonna do one about the street that me and him grew up on, and then you'll have nothing. You'll have just no idea what we're talking about, and we'll totally kill it.
Yeah,
Man.
I'll
The
just be like,
street
yeah,
discussion.
Yeah, that
I'll
was
be
so
like-
cool.
I'll be like, yeah, there were you two and that one kid at the corner who got picked up on the bus, and that one girl, and yeah, that's all I know.
That was
Okay.
awesome.
Okay.
That was so awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, man,
Anyways.
great conversation. Great conversation tonight.
Yeah. Hope y'all's
Really good
enjoyed.
stuff. Yeah, tune in for the next one.
Adios. Goodbye.
See ya.